Uh, Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everyone joining us from across the globe. Welcome to the kickoff webinar of the Global Alliance Education, Training, and Development Month 2025, brought to you by the Global Alliance for Public Relations and Communication Management. We are truly honored to launch this meaningful month-long event under the theme Reimagining PR and Communication, Ignite, Learn, Transform. Over the next hour and a half, we will explore how education and public relations and communication is evolving, driven by innovation, inclusion, and global collaboration. Today, we are joined by esteemed educators and thought leaders who will share academic and regional perspectives on shaping the future of our profession. So, once again, good evening from Indonesia. And we are now gathering. These are the global people tonight. And on behalf of the Global Alliance, it is my privilege to officially open the Global Alliance Education Training Development Month 2025. This year's theme, Reimagining PR and Communication, Ignite, Learn, Transform, invites all of us to reflect on the changes on our profession, embrace new ways of learning, and take part in shaping the future of PR and communication education. GAETDM is more than just a webinar series. It's a month-long global collaboration, bringing together knowledge resources, learning tools, and insights contributed by our members and partners from around the world. So I sincerely thank our Global Alliance Network, academic institutions, and associations for their continued support. And we invite you to visit the Global Alliance website where these valuable resources are made accessible to all. To our distinguished speakers, thank you for your passion and generosity in sharing your knowledge. And to everyone with us today, thank you for being part of this important conversation. Now, to guide us through the two sessions we have lined up this evening, it's my pleasure to introduce our webinar moderator, a respected leader in the field of communication and public relations, Mr. Norman Agatep, APR. Norman is chairman and CEO of Grupo Agatep, one of the Philippines' most awarded communication agencies. He also serves as Vice President External of the Public Relations Society of the Philippines. He is also an educator, lecturing in one of the premier universities in the Philippines. Mr. Norman, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Giselle. And it's wonderful to see all of us gathered in one platform to discuss very relevant items regarding our practice, our profession, and how we teach it to future practitioners of public relations. I see that there are close to 350 participants in our webinar today. I understand, however, that this number is going to double in size as we progress with our webinar today. So once again, thank you for joining us for this wonderful event. And good evening from the Philippines. Again, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the first panel discussion of today's program titled Visioning the Future of PR Education, Anticipating Trends and Innovations. As we navigate the dynamic and ever-evolving landscape of public relations, the role of education in shaping future practitioners cannot be overstated. Today, we are joined by esteemed academic leaders who will share insights into emerging trends, innovative practices, and the future direction of PR education across various global contexts. So allow me to introduce our distinguished speakers, the first set of them. And we begin with an associate professor at the Department of Strategic Communication at the University of Johannesburg. She holds a Doctor of Literature and Philosophy degree and brings extensive experience in strategic communication, curriculum development, and stakeholder engagement. She is a former president of the Public Relations Institute of Southern Africa and currently serves on the board of the Global Alliance for Public Relations and Communication Management. It is my great pleasure to welcome a dear friend whom I finally met face-to-face in Bali late last year. Here is Professor Delian Renee Beneke.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Norman. It is really wonderful to have all of you on this call this afternoon. And isn't it amazing that we can actually travel now from Indonesia to South Africa and have an opportunity to share globally the wonderful influence that we as educators and practitioners can have in shaping the future of our industry. So I have a few thoughts that I would like to share with you all this afternoon, and it is really just a recap of what we are all very familiar with. If we in our trend analysis, which we all experience during the beginning of the year, or end of a specific year, then we all have a lot of new thoughts and wonders as to what the future holds and what are we going to do this year that's new and alternative for our students. Now, if we look at the different trends over the 24-25 introduction to the 25 year, it was quite astounding to see that AI and technology was the highest ranked and rated influencer in our PR practice. Now, this and the use of technology does not come as a surprise because here we are benefiting from that very same technology this year or this session is to actually have an opportunity to connect and to share ideas. So our industry is really dynamic and a mirror of what is happening in society, which is both a great responsibility for us as educators, as well as a great opportunity for shaping the future, but also having our own developmental practices centered in how we daily practice not only academic or academic responsibilities, but also our PR responsibilities. So the qualities of empathy, authenticity, sustainability is very much linked, and I am so glad to see that our fellow colleagues later on is going to talk about the 23 global study and report on education, where this is fairly prominent and where the likes and needs of our key stakeholders, namely our students, are highlighted. So ethical practice came up as well as a very important construct, and so is digital storytelling and multimedia skills. Now, as many of you as seasoned academics would probably also argue, is that digital technology and communication has been with us and evolving over the years and for as long as we are here. What is important is that we teach our students and share, develop their skills on how to cope with the developments on all levels, not only a certain platform and a certain technological development. So AI is the flavor of the month, as we all know, and with good and bad sides to it. Something that I think is really, for me, setting the tone for our discussion this month is that we are still grappling in our industry with somewhat of a silo mentality. We often see that there's almost an emphasis on what the practice is, and that the education and the students are actually aspiring constantly to answer to the needs and latest trends in industry. I want to ask that we look at breaking those silos and at looking at how can we actually become more inclusive and doing something completely different by looking at every one of the role players or the stakeholders in the whole education and in our industry. So for me, the students need to have access to technology, yes, but they also need to be given an opportunity to explore what the industry is about. And that exploration is a guided process, facilitated by the educator and by the institutions where we are all associated with. So there needs to be a cultural sensitivity that only comes through practice. And it only comes through involving students into the unknown, into areas where they may not feel comfortable, where they may feel completely out of their depth. We currently in a collaboration with Murdoch University, and the biggest learning for our master students is actually to measure their own way of dealing with a major assignment on AI and crisis simulation, and how they approach it, my South African students versus the students from Murdoch. And that to me is the beauty of what we can offer as if we follow an inclusive approach. For us as educators, we are certainly at the forefront and should be at the forefront of personal development and focusing on how we can expose ourselves and also challenge ourselves to take on diverse teaching approaches and have inclusive classroom practices. For our industry members, we have a different challenge. That challenge comes in with the partnerships that we would like you all and to be part of, not only of Global Alliance, but also of the vast number of universities and educational institutions where we can really influence and learn from each other, especially on things such as ethical practice and responsible leadership. Now, signature pedagogies is something that I started investigating as part of our wonderful conference last year in Bali. And it really speaks to so much of what it is that we have been doing, perhaps instinctively over the years, but without necessarily assigning a name to it. And if we look at the current notion of transdisciplinarity in our in academia, and there's you may be all familiar with the university a news publication, University World News, which actually brought out a special edition focusing specifically on transdisciplinarity. Now, the reason why I'm linking signature pedagogies to transdisciplinarity is that signature pedagogies have been well established in several professions, such as law and in nursing or the medical fraternity. And it was only in 24 that our wonderful scholars, Kene and Bauman, actually applied and did research on signature pedagogies in public relations. So it is a teaching methodology which develops and ensures that our students develop their critical thinking, which is a key component and a key skill that our students need to have so that they can operate within diverse contexts, but also are adaptable and agile to cope with the challenges in various and diverse situations, but also then become the ethical decision makers that we would like them to be. So together with that is also what you are all very familiar with, experiential learning. So the signature pedagogies are more geared towards the content that we are giving our students in curricula, while the experiential learning is a learning approach that we need to impart with our students as a standard practice in how they actually observe, learn, analyze, apologies, come up with solutions within the context that they are dealing with at that stage. So the beauty of signature pedagogies is also that it is a skills, it moves from a skills-based surface learning to a deep surface learning, where you then have the critical engagement and problem solving. But the aim is for us to develop holistic PR professionals that can speak to academia, can speak to problems within context, can speak to their personal development in line with the capability framework which we are all familiar with. So how do we achieve sustainability? We need each other. Educators, educational institutions, students, and industry all need to form part of the way forward. We need to share, collaborate, and we need to have opportunities where we can learn from each other's case studies. One important aspect that we can also involve ourselves with as advisory, as industry members, is in advisory committees. We can also showcase our commitment to diversity and inclusivity by involving young people. And it's a true call, dear colleagues, to involve them, not to let them just be in the room, but they need to be there doing what is happening in the room. We also need to invest in the individual and especially, apologies, I've been struggling with some bronchitis and my voice is telling me it's now enough. So the last point is an invitation to join COIL, which is the Collaborative Online International Learning Program, which has an international reach, and that we can benefit in as Global Alliance and our members by having, Giselle spoke about it, have a month long of exchange of beautiful knowledge and skills that we can have free of charge in our curricula, available to people to learn how and best practice and how to do these things ethically. So the idea is for us to break the silos, for us to really become the change agents that we need to be and that we all can be. Thank you very much, Norman. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Renee. I was particularly moved by what you suggested, that the classroom cannot be or cannot remain to be a bubble amidst all of the changes that are happening in society, and that the burden of educating our students or the future professionals belongs not only to the teachers in the universities, but everyone, including the practitioners, so that our students are well equipped to enter the real world after their education. We will be seeing more of you, Dr. Renee, for the Q&A, but in the last 20 minutes while you were speaking, over 100 people joined our webinar today. And for those of you who have joined us, once again, this is the first of 2 sessions for today's webinar. And this first session is on visioning the future of PR education, anticipating trends and innovations. You've just heard our first speaker, Professor Dalian Renee Beneke. If you have questions about her topic, you may already begin listing them down. There are already some in the box. You will see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A box, and you're free to type in your questions there so that we can tackle them later on. At this point, however, I'd just like to introduce our second speaker for this first session. So thank you again, Dr. Renee, but we now go on to our second speaker. And he is the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Liberal Arts in Bangladesh. He earned his PhD in communication from the University of the Philippines in Diliman. It's just about 2 kilometers from where I live and where many best PR professionals from my country studied there or had their education, and has held academic and research roles across Southeast Asia. He is the author of Community-Based Communication, A New Approach to Development Communication, and co-editor of Bangladesh's Changing Mediascape. We now, therefore, welcome to this webinar Professor Jude Genilo. Prof?
Yeah. Hello. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. So I'll be sharing my screen. Okay. So I'm in the middle actually for a workshop. And there's a lot of background noise, but I'll try to speak over the background noise that we have. So for today, I'm going to talk about about fostering research and innovation in PR education. Okay, so in my topic, I'm going to talk about the trends in public relations research. So in the past 10 years, one question is, what do academics in public relations study? Where are we moving? And what are our favorite topics? And the first trend that we can see as we do a meta-analysis of all articles on public relations is that social media has become a major topic. Many PR scholars have now looked into social networks, studying that, such as Facebook, Twitter, X, Snapchat. This is one of the topics that has been looked into extensively. PR educators have also looked into selective exposure in the news. So they take a look at what news types do people tune into? What will be their news source? So news types, like, do they look into political topics or social economic topics? And then what news source are they looking into? Do they only look at Fox News or CNN or BBC? So what do they look after? And then for how long? How long do they get exposed to the news? So if they're exposed to social media or the internet for, let's say, 6 hours a day, how much of that is on news? And then do consumers look into professional journalists? Do they listen to professional journalists or citizen journalists or simple bloggers? So there is an interest in looking into selective exposure to news. There's also interest into looking into disinformation, trust, and crisis communication, combating misinformation and disinformation in digital spaces, because we know as educators that there is a lot of it. And in fact, disinformation tries to influence outcome of elections. And that's why many scholars are interested in studying that. They also study trust building strategies in an era of declining trust in institutions and media. We know through studies that journalists are not as trusted anymore. Politicians, of course, not trusted much, but business leaders are more trusted. We also see that scholars are looking into crisis communication and pandemic response. So they're analyzing the effectiveness of PR strategies during the COVID-19 pandemic and exploring the role of social media in disseminating information and managing public perception. So that is the first trend. Social media has become a major topic in the past 10 years. The next trend in PR research is the shift from description to theorization. So public relations has evolved, research in public relations has evolved from largely being descriptive, focused on documenting PR experiences, case studies, and best practices, to a more theoretical approach. So why is this shift happening? Well, the first reason is that there is now professionalization of the discipline. PR has transitioned from a practitioner-driven field to an academic discipline requiring deeper theoretical foundations. And also the need for standardization, ethical guidelines, and best practices has pushed scholars to develop robust theoretical models. The next reason for that is that modern media or modern communication has become very complex. And with the rise of digital media, misinformation, and AI-driven communication, PR has become more complex. And therefore, there is more interest in trying to theorize audience behavior, theorize audience engagement, and crisis response in digital environments. Another reason for this is this interdisciplinary influence because PR draws from communication studies, of course, but also from psychology, sociology, and political science. And theoretical borrowing from these disciplines have led to the development of PR-specific frameworks. Another reason is evidence-based practice, where organizations now demand measurable outcomes from PR strategies requiring predictive models rather than just descriptive narratives. Okay. So what theories are emerging in PR research? So we have listed a few of the theories here. So they include digital PR theory, dialogic communication theory, social media influence theory, algorithmic PR, public interest communication theory, crisis communication resilience theory, and AI and PR ethical frameworks. So these are the emerging theories in public relations research. Okay, so now let's move to trend number 3. Okay, the third trend in PR research is that the methodologies in doing PR is now becoming a lot more diversified as compared to before. Because now we have computational methods and big data analysis. So we now do social media analytics. We now do natural language processing. We do network analysis. We also do experimental methods in public relations, such as testing effectiveness of different PR messages in our digital campaigns. We also do eye tracking studies, analyzing visual engagement with PR content. And then we have AI-powered and machine learning tools. We try to look into predictive analysis, forecasting PR campaign success based on our past data. We try to do chatbot and AI-driven communication analysis. We try to do algorithm auditing, looking into the biases in platform algorithms that affect PR messaging. We also try to do digital ethnography and online communities research. We do virtual ethnography, where we observe how digital communities interact with PR messaging in real time. We look at sentiment ethnography, wherein we combine computational sentiment analysis with qualitative insights from online discourses. We look at participatory digital methods, wherein we engage online communities in co-creating and analyzing PR content. So we also do a lot of crisis simulation scenario planning because now we have AI, and AI we can use to generate crisis simulations. So we can test organizational responses to PR crisis using digital environments. Or we can do scenario-based modeling. We are forecasting potential PR challenges and stakeholder reactions. So there are now a diversified ways of doing PR research. Okay, so the next topic is about academia industry collaboration and why should we do this. Okay, so basically, when we do academic industry collaboration in PR, we look at ensuring research relevance, and practical application. Academics should develop theories and models, but practitioners should provide real-world insights into what works. We should also look into collaboration, which ensures research addresses current industry challenges. We should also do academic industry collaborations because we need to advance evidence-based PR practices. PR has traditionally relied on intuition and experience, but modern challenges require data-driven decision-making. Academics should bring scientific methods while practitioners contribute practical testings of new strategies. This collaboration leads to more effective and measurable PR outcomes. We should also engage with industry and academics for innovation in PR strategies and tools, and also ethical standards should be strengthened in PR. And of course, this requires collaboration between academics and PR practitioners. Okay. So the last point I would like to raise is about student-led research in public relations. So why should we do student-led research? And I think Professor Renee discussed a bit about this in her session. So student-led research in PR refers to academic investigations initiated, designed, and conducted by students, often under faculty mentorship. This approach allows students to engage in hands-on research, exploring real-world PR issues while contributing to the academic and professional discourse. So what are the benefits of student-led research? Well, the first, it fosters innovations and fresh perspectives. Second, it bridges theory and practice. Next, it strengthens critical thinking and analytical skills of the students. We prepare future PR leaders by encouraging students to lead in research. And also, we expand diversity and inclusion in PR research. So these are all I have to say today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Jude. That's also very, very insightful. And I was particularly affected by what you said, that there's a lot of research that's available on our topic of PR education. And it's really a matter of allowing or exposing these research papers to educators as well as practitioners so that they can become more relevant in what they do. We will see more of you again, Prof. Jude, during our Q&A. But again, we've increased in number. And for those of you who have just joined us, once again, we are still in our first session of two this afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are. We first had Professor Renee Beneke, and then you've just witnessed Professor Jude on the topic of visioning the future of PR education, anticipating trends and innovations. Some of you have been asking if the recording will be given to registered participants of our webinar today. Yes, a link I think has been already shared in the chat room. So after this session, you may visit that link to download the recording of our session today. I'd like to call back both Professor Renee and Professor Jude as we begin to answer questions from the audience. So if you do have questions, I encourage all of you to type them in our Q&A box, or you may raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you and you can ask your questions. There is one from Mr. Richard Bailey, and this was submitted during the talk of Dr. Renee. I welcome the approach outlined by Professor Beneke, but my experience of higher education in the UK suggests that education has become more formulaic and predictable, driven by student expectations, at a time when the world is becoming less predictable and more challenging. Public relations education is not fit for the purpose or for purpose, and certainly does need a rethink. Perhaps you'd like to react to that comment, Prof. Renee?
I cannot agree more, Richard. I fully subscribe to that. that we, because of the just trying to keep sanity and operating within the closed structures of higher education, we are also as academia forced to adhere to certain rules. And many of the articles that you read would say that academic institutions and curricula change far too slowly. And it is true. It is really true. But there is a great big but for me. That but comes in with the involvement of our industry and our students into actively learning what it is that they are anticipating to have to learn. So the basic things will always be there, because that's part of the criteria and the requirements within the context of higher education. And like all contexts, there are rules certain, specific to the context. But the change in thinking in terms of agility, involvement of industry members, case studies that are at the moment top of mind need to be delivered and shared to with academia and with the educators to be included in the curriculum for our students. And in that way, I think we can also become more relevant, but also break down the silos. So there's not this idea of a student gets one type of education while they are at informal classrooms and another exposure when they get into industry. It is our responsibility as industry and as academia to build the bridge that the students need to walk. Thank you, Norman.
Thank you for that. Yes, thank you for that, Dr. Renee. There's another question here, or there's a comment that please allow me to read that. It says here that I think research-led PR for students is essential because the students are the future generation, making us equipped with the skills and knowledge and mostly important wisdom on how to handle future challenges and opportunities for new ideas. Maybe Prof. Jude or Prof. Renee can react to that comment.
I would like to comment first on the first question about PR education becoming more formulaic and predictable,
Okay.
but the world is less predictable and more challenging. I think that is a very good question. I would like to say that part of it is how higher education is now governed and the philosophy. Because nowadays, it's like the outcome-based education philosophy is now dominant. We need to have OBE curriculum to get accreditation, and also this affects our ranking because the perception will be is if we don't have an OBE curriculum, you will not be as a high standard educational institution. But when we do an outcome-based education curriculum, it requires us to envision what the graduates will be in terms of their skills, in terms of their attitude, 3 or 4 years from the time they end their degree. And also it requires us to envision where our students should be 5 years after graduation. So it means to say we should be able, when we write our curriculum, be able to see 8 years from now. And with the world changing so fast and the world being so less predictable, then how can we be able to do that? And that's why we become formulaic in the end, because we need to do this visioning exercise in a world that's fast changing. Okay, so about the research, student-led research, well, I think it is really important that we engage students in research because it improves them a lot when they do the research. But again, you could see the inflexibility of the education system because when students do master's degree, sometimes if you do it the traditional way, it will always require a certain degree of coursework and then a certain degree of, a capstone project or a thesis in the end. And that's why a student trying to do and manage all these things, it's quite difficult and challenging. And that's why we, in some education institutions, they're exploring ways wherein maybe you can do a master's by research or master's or a PhD by research, wherein you generate a portfolio of researches, and that is what you would submit as your requirement for your graduate degree. So there is some openness in terms of education institutions regarding this, but still the bulk are using the traditional way.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Prof. Jude. The questions are pouring in. There is one for Dr. Rene. This is from the Philippines, from Gabe Tombok. He says, how can we reconcile providing students access to technology, especially AI, but still remain sustainable in our industry and academic practice?
Yeah, the topic of the month now is, or is it the century? I know many of my colleagues and Prof. Anne Gregory is a strong believer that we should put the human first in the AI scenario. And I was in a session earlier on today that exactly asked this question as to how do we ensure the future of our profession as ethical and authentic, one of the trends that I spoke about earlier on, if we outsource things to AI. I think the reality for us is that AI is a tool. AI gives us access to platforms, to outcomes that we could only dream of. The skill for us and the future of sustainability of our profession, I think, really lies in how well can we use this tool. And if we should not, by any means, try and box AI, in my opinion, and say hands off because you shouldn't use it because it's unethical and all of that. It's that to me is a wrong approach. Learn to use the skill, learn to use the tool, and in that way make yourself far more employable and capable of dealing with the challenges that we have in our industry. So use the tools. It's a tool like anything else.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rene. That was very enlightening. We now have a question for Dr. Jude from Indonesia. And the question is, as we all know, the trend nowadays in PR is about social media, AI, and more about digital media and online communities. In this era, do you think we still need an offline media? And is it still beneficial for a company to do some exposure in an offline media nowadays?
Okay, I would like to combine my answer to that question to another question about PR trust because I think they are connected with each other. Okay, so first is about, the observation of one question here that public trust is diminishing and how do we improve on public trust? Well, I would like to say that the concept of trust is always evolving. In fact, it has been problematized in several ways. For example, when we say trust, are we trying to say a universal kind of trust, wherein you trust a person or an institution on a host of things? Or is trust particular? Like you trust that your hairdresser will do your hair well, but I cannot trust my hairdresser to teach me about money matters. Okay, so then that will be a particularistic trust. And also we see that we have to understand what are the connotations of trust. When we look at the research about trust, we see that institutional trust has been diminishing. There is less trust in institutions like governments, like the media, And even the NGO or civil society sector, trust is getting lower. But we know that personal trust is increasing. Like you trust your teacher, you trust your neighbor, you trust somebody else. And that's why you also see the phenomenon that bloggers are trusted a lot, even if they give false information because of that trust that is there. Okay, so a lot of the trust that so it's like if you're an institution and you would like to build or improve your trust, then we go now to the models or the means of communication on how to build it. Of course, social media is very dominant, digital media is very dominant, but there are things you could not do on social media that you can do in person. And that's why in person is still very, very important. So for example, like in India, um, okay, a political party may have been devastated in an election, but what it can do is to go to the ground, community per community, talking to the persons or the voters in person, and that would be developing trust. Because on social media, their opponent will be stronger than them, and they would be spreading a lot of lies about you on social media. And therefore, to counter this, you have to do person to person or offline media. So offline media is still important to be able to counter whatever is there in the digital media.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Jude, and for your very clear examples. We now go back to Indonesia with a question from Agnes from LSPR Institute. This question is for Dr. Renee, and she asks, I want to ask about the current issue where PR jobs have the potential to be replaced by AI. Is there a possibility of a change in the curriculum and education in the field of communication science if we face AI replacing PR jobs?
Very interesting question, because that works from the premise that AI is going to replace us. And I think my earlier statement around the work that Prof. And Gregory is doing on humans are more needed than ever. There's actually an excellent article on that. I think it's a 23 edition, or article. The assumption is that if we cannot use tools that are that's relevant in the industry, then we are going to be replaced. So where does it leave us? As educators, we need to actively, as I said earlier on, build the bridge for the student between the reality of the classroom and what happens there and what they need to know and what are the basics, towards what they can anticipate. What Jude spoke earlier about, how do we train you for what you can anticipate in the future? And that bridge is what we need to do through AI, through any other technology needed in our classrooms. And that is a big challenge for us if we just think of in a classroom situation, buying the licenses for the students to use the software or to use the AI tools it requires from us a different type of process, procurement processes within the formal institution and so forth. So that's what I meant earlier on, that us as educators need to be developing our own skills as well, broader than just research and academic and publishing. We need to also be able to use AI ourselves and include that in our curricula for the students to use within the challenging structures that we find ourselves in, where there's often not enough finances to afford things such as AI licenses. And that's where our industry can come to the table and assist us on how we actually navigate these challenges.
Excellent. We do have a lot of questions. This is obviously a very hot topic for many of our participants. So we might have time for just a couple of questions left. This one is for Dr. Jude, and it's again from the Philippines. How can professionals translate academic research findings into actionable campaign strategies? And what role does qualitative research still play in the age of big data?
Okay, so I think that's a two-part question. Um, okay, uh, actually, this is one of the problems I face as a when I talk to my faculty when they do research. Um, there is a perception that if you do research as an academic, you are in a silo, and that what you research on, actually, when you do research, it should be actionable. Because I think that's the most important part of the research, is that your research should be having an impact. Okay, it should have an impact on industry, and therefore, I should think that if an academic does a research, the academic should be able to translate it into something actionable for industry. Uh, anyway, that's my belief. As an academic, it should not be a research for just research sake or just to gain pure knowledge. Okay, it should have an impact on society or in the industry. Okay, so that's number one. Secondly, is there space for qualitative research? Okay. Well, if you look at the history of how communication research has been done, you could always say, and looking at many meta-analysis, that quantitative research has always been dominant. Uh, Even in the 60s, 70s, even during World War II, and the researches that were done there, they're mostly quantitative. Survey, content analysis, these were the methods that are still very, very popular. But then we learn that quantitative research is not enough to be able to describe phenomenon, and therefore qualitative research is important. So nowadays, okay, now we have AI tools that help us in doing quantitative research. We now have big data analysis, computational simulation creation, and these are again quantitative tools. But then we also know that they are not being able to explain everything. That qualitative research is also important. That's why what a lot of researchers are suggesting is that there should be mixed method, not only quantitative but also qualitative, so that putting these two together, you'll have a better or a more complete picture of what's happening.
Thank you for that, Dr. Jude. Sadly, we have time for just one question, and I'm going to address this to both Dr. Renee and Dr. Jude before we close the first half of our webinar today. So this question is from Samuel Pasaribu, and Samuel asks, in an era where globalization and digital media have blurred geographical boundaries, how can PR professionals effectively navigate and respect cultural nuances to ensure authentic and inclusive communication across diverse audiences? Who'd like to start? Go ahead, Dr. Renee.
Thanks, Jude, for agreeing to give me the stage first. I was just typing a comment to Mark, who said that AI will not replace PR practitioners, but companies' HR will. And interesting take, Mark, because I think that assumes that we as PR professionals do not have value add. And the same goes for cultural, contextual intelligence. That is something that AI cannot teach our students. by using the tool to enhance that, that's where AI fits in. But our contribution and our value as a communicator in a specific context comes from our understanding of the cultural nuances, the cultural needs of the communities. And that is one of the biggest places where we can add value to both HR and organizations.
Dr. Jude, any thoughts?
Well, you know, the term I think that would the term that would be able to capture this is PR practitioners need to improve on their intercultural communication competence. So being able to improve on this, and of course there are many components of this competence, like being sensitive to diverse cultures, being politically correct in your language, being able to be open, have diversity, inclusivity. So these are competencies that you need to possess as a PR practitioner to be able to navigate the nuances all over geographical locations.
Perfect. Now, as we close this first session for this today's webinar, just parting shots from the both of you. Again, any summary or one-liner that you'd like to announce to everybody regarding the topic, visioning the future of PR education, anticipating trends and innovations. Any last thought you'd like to leave us with, both Dr. Renee and Dr. Jude?
Norman, thank you. Very quickly, we live in amazing times with amazing opportunities if we work together, break down the silos, use our collective skills to build the future of our wonderful profession. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, well, for me, public relations is a profession that develops relationships, builds trust, and builds all this connection between human beings. I do not think that AI can do these things. It can only be done by human beings, and therefore, I believe PR as a profession would stay.
Wonderfully said. Thank you very much, both Drs. Renee and Dr. Jude. And of course, everybody who asked your questions. But again, this session is not over. We're still going on to part 2. So once again, thank you to our 2 distinguished guests as we move on to our second session today. But Giselle, you mentioned a while ago that you probably will be showing the videos that we were not able to
Yes.
show earlier.
Okay, hang on. Sorry. Okay. May I ask, Chacha, are we ready to show the video? Because we had some technical difficulties from the start of the webinar. Would that be something that we are ready to show? Okay, hang on. All right. Give us a few seconds, and there we go. Okay. I think there's still no audio. Okay, hang on. While waiting for the video, I would just like to inform everyone that I have shared the link where you can download the video recording of this webinar and also the PowerPoint presentations of our speakers for tonight. Okay, I think Norman, we just have to go straight to the second. All right. Session.
Sure,
Thank you.
Giselle. No worries. We now therefore introduce our second set of speakers who will be discussing the topic of unveiling insights, outcomes of the CPRE landmark research. This will be very interesting for everyone. This session brings together, of course, respected academics and researchers who will discuss the outcomes of a pivotal study conducted by the Commission on Public Relations Education, or CPRE, with global implications for curriculum development and professional standards. We have four distinguished guests actually to participate in discussion, but I'd like to introduce the first three. Our first speaker is a Gaylord Family Professor of Public Relations and Strategic Communication at the University of Oklahoma. She has played a critical role in shaping international peer education frameworks, and she is widely published, a leader in academic organizations, and co-author of Transparency, Public Relations, and the Mass Media. Welcome our first guest, Dr. Katerina Tsetsura.
Thank you.
Our second speaker, thank you, Doctor. Our next speaker, our second speaker of first three, is an associate professor and vice dean at the University of Bucharest. Her research focuses on the evolution of the PR profession in the digital era, with a particular emphasis on public diplomacy and digital communication. She is actively involved in several prominent European academic networks, including the European Public Relations Education and Research Association, and recently led the launch of the Future PR Student Competition in partnership with the International Communications Consultancy Organization. Please welcome Dr. Anka Anton. We also have our third speaker, Associate Professor of Mass Communications at the Elizade University in Nigeria. So we have three speakers from three different continents. He has also served as head of the Mass Communication Department and acting dean of student affairs at the same university. With over 4 decades of industry and academic experience, he has contributed significantly to the education and practice of PR in Nigeria and beyond. His areas of expertise include corporate communication, CSR, and tourism communication. Let's welcome Dr. Wally. Let's welcome all three of them, Doctors Katerina, Anka, and Wally. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful introduction. And we're so pleased to be here and look forward to discussions afterwards. First, we wanted to share the results of this study that my colleagues and I, together with many professionals, practitioners, and academics, have been working on for quite some time. And this study was done under the umbrella of what we call the Commission on Public Relations Education. The Commission has celebrated the 50th anniversary back in 2023. And so this is the anniversary report on public relations education. So I will start by navigating us through the report, and then we all will speak in turn. And before we go in depth on what this report is about, what the Commission mission is, I want to first thank all our sponsors and supporters. That is, of course, our grand sponsor, the Wise Family Trust and Jim Wise, as well as the David Grossman and the David Grossman Group, who supported the implementation of this research, as well as supporting multiple distributions of the reports, both online and in print format. You see many other names on this slide, and I can probably take just half an hour listing everyone who supported and contributed to this report. But so you know, we have over 50 public relations practitioners and academics from the United States, as well as from all over the world, really contributing and working on this report. And I will talk about the latest report today. We discussed the 2023 report overview. Just for everybody's reminder, this is the report that is designed for the education on public relations in the United States, but we really strive to attract the global look into that, and we do hope that the report, because it also has so many global scholars and practitioners contributing, might be helpful in facilitating conversations about education worldwide. So we'll go over the goals of the report. We'll talk about the report process and development. We'll discuss the top line findings that we separate accordingly to 7 topics, and then highlight the principal recommendations today. So this report is really one of those reports that Commission has been producing for many years, and the goal is really to provide guidance to public relations education standards. Now, I mentioned this report and the Commission initially started as the United States Commission and providing the reports for the United States education. But it has had wide global implications worldwide for many years. I actually served as the graduate student translator for the reports so many years ago, back in early 2000s, and I remember utilizing and using this report in speaking with my colleagues across the world in terms of how we can learn from this report in terms of standards of public relations education moving forward. So this 2023 report goals are really to develop as administrative and authoritarian voice in public relations education. This is because we have so many practitioners and academics coming together, sharing their valuable knowledge, telling the world what it would be really useful to know for our recent graduates and how we should educate our future public relations practitioners. We finally, with this report, provide the forum for ongoing educational discussions about the practitioners and academics' influence into successful public relations education. And we are so happy to be here with you because we hope that you will also contribute with your discussions, with your questions, with your suggestions and recommendations of what kinds of topics the report should address in the future. This is not the first report, and we certainly hope this is not the last report. So let me talk a bit about the process of this report development. We have had a multi-layer mixed methods research going into preparation of this report. We have conducted the surveys, interviews, and focus groups, as well as practical experiences and group discussions within the commission members on the results of the survey and interviews. We interviewed and surveyed 197 educators and 269 practitioners with the experience of average of 22 years and the median age of 48. And the questions we asked were specific to what kinds of things, what kind of areas, abilities, knowledges, skills you would like to see in future graduates. What is it that we really need to study, learn, teach at the undergraduate level of public relations today? And the report highlighted 7 topic areas that we found to be most important and most prevalent based on this research findings. And we'll talk about each of these findings one by one. I also want to highlight the top line findings before I pass the mic to my colleagues here. I want to highlight that the report really augmented and demonstrated that the future of public relations workforce really faces many different types of challenges in the workplace. And we've heard our previous speakers talking about some of them already. We also highlighted that there is a very specific core essential standard that we need to teach, and we need to make sure that our future public relations professionals are exposed to in terms of knowledge, skills, and abilities. Everybody emphasized critical strategic thinking, and we will spend some more time talking about that. We also demonstrated that one of the top level line findings was this data, insights, and strategy, very important point to emphasize and study for all our future public relations practitioners. We also saw ethics as the central point of that, and public relations as a driver of the social change. Really strong survey results and that demonstrated the agreement that public relations practitioners and educators alike really drive the social change as a result. Now it's my pleasure to pass the mic to Dr. Anka Anton, who will share with us some insights with topic-by-topic discussions. Anka, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. Such a pleasure to be able to talk about this report and be here basically at the intersection of so many organizations working together in order to advance PR education. Thank you very much to Global Alliance for organizing this, to CPRE for doing this report, and I'm here representing UPRERA. So this is just fascinating, and it's related to some of the comments that were done earlier about global PR and how we can place PR education in multicultural contexts. Right. So I will just point out a few things related to the first three topics addressed in the report. But I do encourage everyone to take as deep a dive as they can into the report. You will get a link at the end. The report is really fascinating, and what you will get is not only an identification, description of the challenges that we now face, but also several recommendations in order to tackle these challenges. So one of the first topic that is addressed in the report relates to the future of the public relations workplace. This in the context of so many transformations taking place so fast, technological advances, employee expectations which do change incredibly fast, several lessons that we learned hopefully from the global pandemic. So one of the first and maybe one of the most critical recommendations is the essential place that collaboration between educators and practitioners has. It echoes what Prof. René mentioned earlier. It is incredibly important to carry out education not in isolation from the workplace realities, but actually create experiential learning opportunities. So immersive situations where students can truly experience workplace dynamics, experience hybrid teams, experience organizational culture, all those very human aspects that actually are at the core of PR work, rather than just drafting text or taking a very tactical approach to it. Then another recommendation has to do with the ethical challenges in practice, which need to be embedded into the curriculum. This is about addressing misinformation or the ethical use of AI or diversity, equity, inclusion, and even belonging initiatives into the curriculum. They are, to be honest, not optional anymore. They are essential, and students must learn not just that they are challenges, but that they are issues that we can address, and we are developing tools to address them. So this is another aspect related to the workplace. Another one is facilitating or teaching students to understand their personal values and priorities, how to align them with their career aspirations, particularly related to younger generations who are still or are in that phase of their profession and their personal development where they are exploring and really trying to understand what everything is about, what their profession is about, what they are about, what their place place within the profession is. So I do think that this is one of the areas of the report that I mostly resonate with. The educator as a guide to this reflection on what my values are and how do they align with the profession and the organization. You know, whether it's work-life balances or social causes or, you know, just finding your role and your place, this need for self-awareness that we can actually enable. And of course, there are several other recommendations like fostering personal communication skills. So important in the age where technology seems to take over, but I would say, going back to what Professor René mentioned about technology being so essential within the areas that we study, I would say that as technology gets more of a light on it, so should personal or interpersonal communication skills, you know, putting a light not just on technology, but on the human element. And then another aspect, another recommendation is regarding the adapting onboarding practices to reflect, you know, the modern workplace realities, particularly again related to Gen Z professionals who do enter the workforce with distinct expectations than previous generations. Then moving forward to the next topic, this is related to the curriculum, and it has to do with some very interesting data coming out of the report. So what the report does in each edition is that it compares and contrasts the perceptions of the educators and the practitioners related to the expectations on what they see as desired and delivered related to essential KSAs, which are essential knowledge, skills, and abilities. And there are, as I said, some interesting changes coming out of the report that reflect the current situation. So educators work to include many elements as part of their programs, push their teaching capacity, but are not particularly optimistic about what their students retain or carry over from class to class or from class to practice, whereas practitioners may be more broadly judging the new generation of practitioners, of incoming practitioners. So, for example, the knowledge area received some of the lowest ratings overall, especially compared to skills and abilities. Possibly showing that practitioners focus on the application of that knowledge on what the recent graduates can do. So areas such as business acumen, areas such as management, often listed as what practitioners want students to know and understand, did not receive higher ratings. And there is one exception, and that is ethics, which was highly rated, coming at the top of the rankings for desired and delivered by educators. And it was also at the top of the rankings for what practitioners desired, but third for what they found. So this is an interesting finding that came out of the report. And I would also like to mention here that this evaluation was done in relation to the CPRE 6-course standard. So the CPRE recommends that each PR program has 6 courses as standard, and of course they can add to this 6 courses, but they should always be present. So the 6 courses are principles, research methods, ethics, writing, campaigns or case studies, and supervised work experience or internships. So these are the 6 core standards. Now, moving forward to the next topic, which is critical strategic thinking. Always very present, but it's important to also understand how to apply it in practice. So this topic addresses these twin pillars of critical thinking and strategic thinking. And they are present in the discussions related to education, related to practice, but the report highlights a very troubling gap. So practitioners rank critical and strategic thinking as the most sought after skills, but these competencies are often underdeveloped in recent graduates and are not always explicitly taught. So when we are talking about critical thinking, this is the ability to analyze problems from multiple perspectives, to question assumptions. When we are talking about strategic thinking, we are talking about the ability to take these analyses and translate them into actionable forward-thinking strategies. So in order to address not just the issues, but also solutions or recommendations for them, the report actually introduces a model, the DASA model, which is related to detecting, analyzing, strategizing, and acting, right? So this is a framework that is useful in teaching, but it's not just a teaching tool. So it is a way of thinking that integrates both the analytical and the strategic part. So for example, if a PR professional must first, in a crisis scenario, a PR professional can first detect the issue, then analyze the implication, then strategize a response, then act decisively. And I do recommend you take a look in the report, because it provides a map of learning activities for DASA. So very practical recommendations on how to address this in the classroom, what activities can be done for each of these four stages, and they are linked to 6 key traits that you can see on the screen: organizational awareness, issue orientation, proactivity, creativity and innovation, system thinking, and a future and being future oriented. I do recommend that you have a look. To be honest, it's one of the very practical, very pragmatic things that you can take from the report and get into the class, and it will improve the way that critical and strategic thinking are embedded into the curriculum. Yes, thank you. And I think that my colleague, Dr. Wally, yes, can move forward to the next topic.
Thank you very much, Katrina, Anka, and of course, I'd like to acknowledge Giselle for the very wonderful coordination that brought us to this point. Also, I'd like to say that one of the things that have been said over and over by the various speakers is actually the need for us to collaborate. And the result of this presentation is actually one of the products of collaboration between Global Alliance and the Commission for Public Relations Education. As a matter of fact, I was privileged to be at the launch in November 2023 in Chicago. And excuse me, like Renee apologized for having some cold, so please apologize. Yeah, the point is that even whether you are in America, whether you are in Asia, whether you are in Africa, there is a commonality in this profession, and whether you are in academics or in industry. And so it is good that we are coming together to dissect and understand some of these trends that we needed to address in order for us to project and move our profession forward. I'm going to be addressing 3 issues. And the first of them is really the issue of data insights and strategy. And it is for us to be able to align data analysis and AI through education and practice. AI, that is artificial intelligence. Everybody is talking about artificial intelligence. And I saw one of the participants actually saying that artificial intelligence may not be ethical, but I just like to say that, yes, but there are moves to make sure that it is not artificial intelligence just let loose. There are programs that are being made to make sure that there are codes of ethics in operating it. So integrate knowledge, skills, and abilities related to data analysis is a very important element for our education, for our practice, and then in any case for us to be able to make public relations a better profession. Because making sure that our knowledge, our skills, and abilities are aligned is very, very critical. And indeed, data runs the world today. Big data, as big, as dynamic as this data may be, it is actually what provides us as professionals content for whatever it is that we want to explain, for whatever it is that we want to project, for whatever it is that we want to use to counsel our organizations in order for them to be able to progress. Then we should be able to incorporate data analysis across all academic curricula for public relations. Most of our students don't like data. They don't like anything analysis. They don't like any calculations. But it is really the way to be able to explain situations, to understand issues, and to actually help your organizations to do much, much better. Therefore, we cannot run away from data analytics. And the good thing is that technology has made it very easy for us to be able to understand and interpret. As a matter of fact, for us as communicators, all we needed to do is to be able to understand those data and to explain it to our various stakeholders as well as publics. Then build a solid foundation in quantitative and qualitative research. Jude made allusion to this, that as a matter of fact, it may be better for us to now do mixed method when we are doing research. That is, combine a combination of qualitative as well as qualitative research. And I agree with him, because when you do that, you are likely going to have a bigger and a better picture of the issue that is being addressed. Then that we should teach basic spreadsheets, Excel in business data analysis. Like I said, most of our students don't enjoy or don't want to do this, but we tell them that, look, your best bet, in order for you to explain concepts and phenomena, you are better off when you do it with numbers. And so we should always make sure that we encourage them and make it simple. And technology offers us the opportunity to make this analysis much, much easier with graphs, with pie charts, with infographics. I mean, it becomes very interesting. And telling a story becomes very easy when you can see it in pictorial format. Then we need to encourage curiosity and a problem-solving capacity for our students. Because when they get into industry, one of the things that puts the industry leaders off is their inability to quickly grasp issues, to quickly relate issues and be able to transpose and interpret situations such that they can solve problems. That we needed to always emphasize in our curriculum. Then we need to make them understand that we're talking about data, but with data there are responsibilities, there are ethics. That is, you do not use people's data anyhow. Data that has been time-bound, data that have been pegged maybe for a particular period of time, or data that are just given to you in confidence, privately, confidentially. You should know that such data must be used responsibly if you needed to use it at all. So ethics is very, very important in our use of data. Then we needed to also be able to teach our students to align the data that they have, that they generate, that they obtain from any source, responsibly in such a way that they could use it to measure organizational outcomes. Because, like Professor Jude said, he actually talked about OBE. OBE means outcome-based education. They are doing that in engineering, and I think it is something that we can adopt in public relations. We are doing it, because we do a lot of practicals, but we can do it more consciously so that the outcome needed to be matched with the inputs, okay? And then, of course, the issue of critical thinking. Today, with technology, distractions from the internet, and all the various social media apps that are making students less and less thinkers. They depend so much on all the social media handles, and they're always pinging and posting. And so we need to emphasize the need to be critical thinkers. Critical thinking is what makes you a better communicator. And therefore, critical thinking will always reverberate in all our discussions, and I believe that we cannot overemphasize it. And the second topic is actually ethics. And it's an essential competency that is usually neglected. And why? Because we all believe that we are doing so well, that we're so good, and that we know all the rules and we obey all the rules. But that's not necessarily the case. And so we as educators and professionals needed to always emphasize the need for ethics. That's why we have the codes of ethics, the code of conduct, we have regulations, we have bylaws. All of those rules are to guide us as to how we relate with each other, how we relate with our organizations, how our organizations relate with each other, with government. You know, ethics is very, very important. Ethics should therefore be a required course in public relations programs. I don't think there's any public relations program that does not teach ethics. And I know that a lot of the coursework, a lot of the practicals, a lot of assignments that are given are based on ethics. And there are public relations educators should also incorporate ethics into all courses across the curriculum. And I believe that that is not too much to ask, because we can see how ethics have been thrown overboard. We can see how people have neglected ethical considerations for others, for other organizations, and the whole world is in turmoil simply because somehow we are not paying attention to what is important. But for us as communicators, we need to be able to always ensure that ethics is prioritized, that ethics is insisted upon, and that whenever there are infractions, there must be consequences. One of the reasons why people get away with unethical behavior, whether as individuals or organizations, is because there are no consequences, even though the laws are there, but people just ignore it. And so what is being emphasized here is the need for us to be ethical in whatever it is that we're doing. Public relations programs should therefore review their curricula with an eye towards the most important ethical topics as identified in the report. There are a couple of areas that were identified in the report, and I believe that most mass communication, public relations programs are really ethical. They have ethical components. All that this project or this report is saying that we should pay attention to it, because it says, although ethics is essential, but it is usually neglected. So there's a clarion call that we should pay more attention to it, particularly when you have very hostile work environment, work situations, when honest conversations needed to be engaged in, people pretend, people gloss over it. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. And you can imagine when people say ethics does not matter, but we know that ethics is everything. If an organization is doing very well and it's unethical, that is a crisis, that is a danger waiting to happen. And therefore, it is good for us to just understand the fact that ethics is one of those things that makes organizations successful or a failure. And for us as communicators, for us as professionals, we needed to always do that. At the third part of it, the third aspect of this report that I will be talking about is DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, today it has been politicized, but for us as educators and practitioners, we know the diversity or the DEI is simply saying leave nobody behind. DEI is also saying that treat everybody fairly and equally. Well, yes, there may not be equality in terms of everybody is equal, but what we are saying is that when you treat everybody fairly and you are conscious of the fact that everybody needed to be respected, every culture needed to be respected, every opinion needed to be taken on board, considered, and action or necessary action taken. So for us in public relations and communicators, as communicators, DEI is an ethical social responsibility. It is not optional. And it is imperative in public relations, education, and practice that DEI is upheld and that and it is taken seriously to the extent that whenever our organization has programs to be executed, we should look at the balances. Because really, for us as communicators, as public relations practitioners, what we see, what other people do and is ignored, it is so glaring, it is so apparent in our own case. And they say, oh, so for us, DEI is not politics, it is a reality of life. DEI also centers on appreciating human differences. I think it was Jude that mentioned intercultural understanding or intercultural studies. I think it is very important because really we are so different, but we are the same. Like I said at the beginning, what CPRE understood from their annual evaluation of public relations education is that there are things that are common to everybody in practice. Even though it's based in America, there's so much diversity even in that America. And so when Global Alliance embraced and approved that this study should be discussed in this forum, I think it was a beautiful idea because really there's so much that we can learn from each other. And I like the theme for these themes the theme for these month-long education exchanges. Then we should also ensure that all individuals and communities feel valued and indeed that they are valued. Ladies and gentlemen, I think what the takeaway from this is that as much as possible, we should always be conscious of the need for ethics. We should always be the need for us to use as much data as we can, and then of course, leave nobody behind. And therefore we worry and we promote diversity, inclusion, and equality. Thank you very much for listening.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Katrina, for giving us a background on this landmark research, and for Dr. Anka and Dr. Wally for enlightening us on 6 of the 7 major findings of that research. Now, I'd like to introduce to you another person who is contributing to this discussion. She is Professor Anne Gregory, who joins us via a recorded presentation. Let's check out if her video works. But Dr. Gregory is a professor emeritus at the University of Huddersfield in the United Kingdom, a past president of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, and a globally recognized leader in PR research, particularly in evaluation and AI. She is a co-author of Chapter 2 of Navigating Change, this signature report of the Commission on Public Relations Education. Let's see and check out that recorded message from Prof. Gregory. I'm afraid the video has no audio, so let's do this instead. We will ensure that the video is also uploaded in that link that we shared with everybody already, where you can download all the materials from our webinar today. We will ensure that the video of Dr. Gregory is included there, but we would like to invite Dr. Katerina to discuss the main topics or the main that section on topic number 7 of PR as a driver of social change. Dr. Katrina?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, so the 7th topic, and once you get the video, you'll be able to hear from Anne Gregory as well on this topic, is really about public relations field and seeing this field as the driver of social change. And the idea here is simply to understand what one of our viewers, our participants mentioned in the chat just a while ago, that public relations is really first and foremost is humanity, right? It's the idea of approaching and understanding how social change content can be really combined with our skills, with our knowledge and abilities, how public relations can help make the world better. I think it's a very profound and a very important message. And I think you all agree we don't need to do a big research to arrive to this outcome. However, I think it's very important, and it was essential for us in this report to emphasize that this idea should stand alone, and this area should be emphasized as a separate chapter and as a separate discussion within the report on public relations education. This is the idea that we really need to acknowledge, realize, reflect, and practice that social change driver, public relations, that is, needs to be front and center and integrated throughout all our experiences and throughout all our practices. It's really mainstream of our practice, not just the add-on, not just an additional bonus. It should be in the very core, in the very center of everything that we do. Public relations practitioners and educators, as you can see, agreed to this. And through our research, we saw these discussions develop and molded as we started to discuss the report with 50 plus members of the commission. And as we arrived to the final product of the Commission on Public Relations Education report in 2023, we all agreed that this should be the final and most perhaps prominent topic to emphasize, that public relations really needs to be thought of and pioneered as the driver of social change. We are in a very unique position as public relations educators. We are in the position to really change the world for better, to really provide opportunities, to provide skills, knowledge, and abilities to many groups of people to express who they are and to also help them achieve their own goals. And that's what this doing social work change really is all about. This is what engaged scholarship is all about for those of you who are educators. And this is also what the making world a better place is about for those of us who are working in practice. So these are the 7 topics that we wanted to discuss. Please use the report as the resource. Please check out not only the full summary of the report, but also not the full report, but also the summary of the report. I will share the links to the summary of the report and the full report web page right now in the chat box. You also will be able to see there the overall homepage of the report commission. You can find previous reports there. You can find additional resources. It's a very, very useful tool. Lots of really useful and important things there. I encourage you to engage with the report engage with the conversation, engage with the discussion. And also, if you're interested in volunteering and continuing this work on identifying standards for public relations education worldwide, finding commonalities, please reach out to us and express your interest. We're always looking for volunteers. It's a volunteer work, but a very, very important work to shape the next generation of public relations practitioners. Well, with this, I will pass the mic to our distinguished moderator for facilitating question and answers period. And I think we do still have some time for questions.
Yes, we do. And thank you again, Dr. Katerina, for sharing those links, because people have been asking where to download the full report as well as the executive summary. So guys, if you're interested to understand or digest that report more fully and understand better what was discussed today, then please download those reports. We are now free to answer questions from the participants today, and let's check out some here in the Q&A box. Right, there's one. I want to ask a question to Professor Anka about what adjustments should be made in PR education to support and align with the demands of future creative industry practitioners.
Right. Thank you very much for that question. I think to some extent I can answer and also incorporate a little bit an answer to the previous question about, journalists and global practice of public relations. I particularly like that type of questions, to be honest. All right. So my position is usually a little bit more radical when it comes to change. Of course, there are several, pragmatic things that can be changed, but given the world that we live in, I think there are two things that can be done. And then if those are done, then they can have the appropriate repercussions. One is to have a fundamental paradigm change in both practice and education. Education without practice and practice without education, they are just two useless things. But we do need to understand more the profession and the education for the profession in terms of its impact, in terms of its society-centric, understanding rather than organization-centric. I do know that a lot of PR education is done with a society-centric, with an organization-centric approach in mind. But the reality is that if we do not protect and aid society, what exactly are we doing? So it's good to have healthy organizations, but not in an unhealthy society. So I think that we really need to think and reflect, critically think and reflect about our role. Both from a profession and from an education perspective. I do not see them that much apart. So that would be one. Think about exactly what we want to do. And the other would be to take PR education into business schools. Because a lot of the times we do talk about ethics, we do try to embed into practice and into education ethics, morality, empathy, humanity, right? But then we are stonewalled when we go into practice and we meet with managers who do not really understand or share our values. I also teach business students, and they have ethics as an optional course, and only one of them took that optional. I'm sorry, ethics is not optional. And if it's not for us, then it shouldn't be for those we are preparing to work with. So that would be the second thing that I would do. So we really need to define our compass. And related to the first question about journalists, Trump, and things like that, if a compass is broken, change it. Do not follow it. Right?
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Anka. Let's segue to this other question, which everybody in this panel can answer. It's also related to the first. This question is from Everine in Indonesia from the LSPR class. She's a student. And her question is, why is ethics so important in PR? And should it really be part of every course that we take?
I can maybe start answering this question, and thank you very much for this. Feel free, my distinguished colleagues, to jump in and add something. But I put a little phrase in the chat just a couple of minutes ago. Any organization or any company exists only as long as society allows them to exist. And I think that's very important for us to remember, to reflect, and to essentially arrive to the answer to your question, that understanding ethics is essential because we as public relations practitioners work for the long-term legitimization of organization. We are not here to deliver the results for today or even tomorrow. We are here to deliver the results for the lifelong legitimization of the organization and society so that organization can really exist in societies many, many years from now. We are the ones who are thinking ahead and deep into the future. Societies will decide ultimately whether you as an organization or company have a place in business. And for that, you really need to treat and you really need to understand all the members of the society and engage with them, build and maintain those trustworthy relationships. And trustworthy relationships really start with deep understanding of what ethical principles and morals are all about, right? Because we all want to hang out with good people. We all want to have great friends. We all want to have those very deep, clear human connections. And we also need to understand that behind every organization and a company, there are people first and foremost. And so it's about good people and good organizations speaking well is what we do in public relations.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to weigh in on the same question? If not, I do have a follow-up.
Yeah.
My question personally is, in many campuses around the world, ethics is not yet part of dedicated PR courses. So where do educators begin? How do they incorporate the topic of ethics in the classroom so it becomes clearly integral to the study of PR and not just a side topic?
Yeah, let me say I'm surprised if there is any curriculum on communication, even journalism, and even public relations that does not include ethics. Really, because then what about the code of ethics? What about standard practice, operational guides? All of those things are basically talking about conflict of interest, treating everybody equally, making sure you check your facts, and ensuring that you don't continue to promote disinformation, misinformation, malinformation that is all over the place today. And that's why we talk about citizen journalism. As popular as it is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because people's career, life, integrity are just at the whims and caprices of individuals just because they have a telephone in their hands. And so it is a societal challenge. Because the way that's why I was saying that if there are consequences for infringement about any rule, about any law, about any codes of conduct, people will retract. But because most times people get away with it. And unfortunately, we see them flying high and being adored and being decorated. And so there is a confusion in the mind of the young people to say that if so and so is being honored, is very rich and all the rest of it, and they know that he's very unethical, he's corrupt, and so many other negatives. So I think that is where the problem is. So I'm going to say that I do not think that there will be a public relations program or communication program in any tertiary institution or even communication program that does not have ethical component. If there are such, I think it is time for them to add that. Thank you.
Very well said, Dr. Wally. I like to ask this question from Kirk Roncesvalles, who asks, how can we ensure that PR education stays globally relevant while being locally responsive?
What a wonderful question. So as somebody who teaches the global public relations at our university, and by the way, we do have a required course in ethics. We call it Public Relations and Society. So I'll say a couple of words about that after I answer the question. When I teach global public relations class with my students, and remember, I am in the middle of the United States and the state called Oklahoma, and that's a very much remote from both coasts, and in some ways remote from the world. I always like to challenge my students, asking questions of how the world is interconnected and how the world is really global on their fingertips in their iPhones or other devices. And that this is the first step for us to say that globalization really becomes part of your experience. I think where a lot of times we also want to emphasize localization is that you really need to think about not only global trends and differences between and among cultures, but also the differences of what I call geopolitical differences, right? Differences within your own region of your own country. We know many countries are really big in geography, or they might be big or multi-ethnic countries, and each group of individuals, each state in the United States is different. Each island in Indonesia is different, right? And you have many different languages, and you have many different approaches and the ways of how people see life. And that what makes things unique and exciting, to start understanding who you are, to start understanding what your culture is all about, what your motivations are, what you find most dear and near to your heart. And then learning about ourselves is the first step to learning about others and really doing public relations well and do it effectively. So I always say that global and local are always intertwined, because we're not starting from outside in, we're working from inside out. Understand yourself first, who you are, and how to really work well within your group, within your environment, and then build from there.
Thank you very much. Apparently, we do have a lot of students who are attending this session, and two of them have the same question, which any one of you may answer. And that question is, how can learning about AI help us as PR students in our academic programs? Does anyone want to volunteer to answer that?
I can give it a try, and hopefully someone will join. I would say the first, you would need to understand what exactly is AI. And Professor Annette, mentioned that it is a tool. I would say that it is also a test of who you are. A test for you to see how you see your place in the profession. I had an assignment, for first year PR students to present a campaign plan. And 18 out of 20 were done with AI, although I told them to think about it, and it was their first attempt at doing that. And I asked them, okay, I'm not mad that you used AI. I'm mad, actually, I use that word. I'm mad that you thought that your education can be substituted by AI. And I'm mad that you don't understand the fact that if you see your work as being so easily substituted by AI, that you don't see that someone who pays taxes for your work will jump to that conclusion faster than you are jumping to use that tool. So I would say that it's a test, and it's a way for them to understand what the value of their work is, what the value of their profession is. Learning about AI and the place of AI in the profession is just like learning about social media some not so many years ago in the profession. It's something that is coming in that will certainly change the profession and the society around us. Not sure exactly why, and I don't want to share my thoughts because I'm kind of dark sometimes in that aspect, but it's just another step to do. It's not something that will fundamentally change how we understand the profession. We are still human. We are still driving forward with that humanity. And AI is not something that will replace that. But we need to be, to be aware of that and acknowledge that first and foremost. Yeah.
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, now I had a very interesting experience with my students. And we have a course seminar in mass communication. And so my students just went for AI. And when I saw the scripts, of course, you will see the traces, the telltales about the fact that they were not original thinking. Ordinarily, this course, you just present 3 seminars, papers, and that's it. So because they went on the route of AI, I decided to now add, apart from any other test, to now add an examination. And then after the examination, I now ask them, how has the AI be able to help you? So what is happening is that rather than for students to utilize the tools to assist them, maybe in creating their content or their outlines and stuff like that, they just want AI to do everything. Even to, of course, there is nothing to edit because the English is so perfect, the arrangements and what have you. So what I want to say, since the question is from students, is to say that, just like Anka said, you do not substitute somebody's AI for yourself. Because the truth of the matter is that when they now do cut and paste with AI, the telltales are there because it does not relate to their environment. The examples are not their examples, and it's so clear that they have not added anything to it. The other thing I started doing is that when I'm in class, I expect you to write or make notes. And I make it a point of duty to go around and check whatever it is that they write. Because at the end of the day, there is a connection between listening and writing, reading and writing. And AI is just making all of those things a myth now. Because they just click and they get everything. So I think for us as educators, we need to re-strategize how we are going to engage these young people. So even the brilliant ones, once they are making their presentation, the last slide will give them out because because they are careless. And I ask, you can do this. Why do you have to, So I think for us, it's going to be a challenge, but gradually, like I think it's in Denmark, I can't remember which country, has decided that they are going to minimize the use of virtual classes, electronic this, electronic that, and go back to reading books. I mean, if you're a communicator and you're not reading books, I don't think you will even have the data, the content, and even the confidence that you needed to be able to communicate properly. Just sharing my experience. Thank you.
Your personal experiences are well appreciated. Thank you, Dr. Anka and Dr. Wally. There is one question here addressed to Dr. Caterino, but I think Dr. Wally may also answer this because I know this was part of his presentation. The question is, what strategies can we adopt as students to cultivate a mindset of curiosity and critical problem solving, particularly in an era where data-driven insights are increasingly shaping PR practice?
Very good question. I think Dr. Waller did answer that question, and I would just emphasize, get yourself out and away from the screen and go explore the real world, right? Just find excitement outside the screen. You will be surprised how much you can learn just by sitting in a coffee shop and observing people, or engaging with the book, looking at the next interesting conversation with your folks, or even taking a piece of paper and trying to do origami out of it. I think that's where the creativity and curiosity is all about. You know, the best and the most expensive daycares and kindergartens and elementary schools in this country, in the United States, actually private schools, they do not allow the use of screens at all. They don't use iPads, they don't have TVs in the classrooms, they don't have any of that. They have pieces of paper, they have crayons, they have all these old style tools that we used to utilize to spark creativity. I think anything you can do to really get yourself away from the screen and explore accidentally something new that was not fed to you by the algorithm, not based on what the algorithm thinks you might like next, but you just come across something and learn something about things that you didn't expect. Challenge yourself to go to a place that you usually don't go, to expose yourself to the information you usually don't see. Go to the museum, open the book you've never heard. Try to challenge yourself with the conversation with the person you've never had a conversation with before. And that's the way to really spark that curiosity, creativity, and something that really will help you to build that critical thinking.
Wonderfully said. There are so many questions, but we are running out of time. Maybe a couple more just before we close this session altogether. I'm taking one from an anonymous attendee, and that person asks, are we seeing encouraging signs from the academe that the PR practice is heading in the right direction in light of the CPRE report? Does anybody want to weigh in on that question? Is it encouraging? Are PR professionals headed in the right direction, given our 7 major findings from the CPRE report?
Katrina can do that.
Yeah, I think we see some of that difference. I think we need to realize that the world is much bigger and much more complex than the headlines we see.
Yeah.
And what really matters is what happens in your neighborhood. And a lot of times that's going to be the most important way of practicing public relations. Dr. Wally, you wanted to add something.
Well, we've mentioned the word commonality, and to the extent that what happens in one corner of the world affects, if something happens elsewhere, it affects everybody. And therefore, there are things that we all needed to always be conscious of. We're talking about ethics, we're talking about data, we're talking about education itself, because AI is challenging education. All that we knew about how to study, how to be a good student, how to pass, AI is throwing all of that into the, it's getting us back onto the drawing board. And so a lot of things needed to be addressed. And I believe that in the end, AI is good, absolutely, absolutely. But the tool, the ethics that people are developing, every country is trying to see how to address, even social media. AI is not new. We've always had it in form of Google. These days, you have academics that are sanctioned for plagiarizing themselves because you have quoted one of your papers without referencing it. That's plagiarism. And so there are stricter rules about publications, about even these days you find your student challenging you. Maybe you just make a generalized statement and one of them says, but I'm not sure what I just said is correct. So there are lots of advantages in what technology is offering us. What we needed to do is to be able to distinguish between what will be useful and what is going to constitute negativity. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We've sadly run out of time, but I do want to ask everybody in this panel one more question, the same which I've asked the previous panel. Any parting shots that you'd like to share with all our attendees here, who are mostly educators and students of PR? Anything that you'd like to leave them with as we close our session tonight? Maybe we begin with Dr. Katrina, and then Dr. Anka, and then Dr. Wally.
I very much like this tagline, stay curious. And I want to remind everybody to stay curious and go explore the world. It always amazes me how much out there that we do not know. And through that experience, we can learn a lot more about ourselves too and become better practitioners. So let's stay curious.
That's great advice. Dr. Anka?
I think that along the lines of what Professor Katerina said, I would say stay human and stay empathetic, and maybe be militant or be activist in what you do, because for me being ethical in public relations has a bit of activism in it. Without it, we don't drive forward social change. And essentially, for me, PR people are good people who try to take that goodness at organizational and societal level. But they need to be very aware of their mission and how important it is to generate good around us, starting from the inside and going outside. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dr. Anka. And now Dr. Wally.
I like to say being ethical is social responsibility, and it is imperative for us as public relations educationists and practitioners to uphold this at all times. Thank you.
Wonderful. Before I turn you over to the woman of the hour, Giselle, who gathered everybody for this great session, I'd like to thank everyone who participated in our 2 sessions today. The discussion was very enlightening for me particularly, and I'm still amazed that in one screen, people of different continents have come together to talk about a very important topic for all of us. Once again, this is Norman Igatep from the Philippines, and wishing you well and encouraging everybody to take to heart all the messages that we've heard from our valuable guests today. Take it away, Giselle, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Norman.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the
Thank you.
organizing committee, thank you all, our incredible speakers, moderator, and every participant for making today's GAE-TDM kickoff webinar a true success. So before we close, we warmly invite you to join us again for the GAE-TDM cap-off webinar on 30 April 2025 with the theme Transforming the Landscape, Future-Ready PR and Communication Strategies. So this final session will spotlight real-world best practices from outstanding industry leaders across the globe. After gaining valuable insights today on the academic foundations of PR and communication, it's time to hear from the practitioners shaping the future of our field. So we have to discover how education meets action in the evolving landscape of PR and communication. So we have to learn from global experts, explore diverse and practical strategies. So please mark your calendar. This is a Master 10 session to complete your GAE-TDM 2025 journey. So stay connected. Please visit the Global Alliance website and follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook for updates throughout the Global Alliance Education, Training, and Development Month in the month of April. So thank you once again and see you at the cap-off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.